Hi there, students. This lesson is to show you a little bit about how to get from a concept idea to a plan for your graphic design. In this project, the goal was to say, hey, we've been doing this study of nonfiction and we've learned a lot about these books. We've been thinking about them, and we want to share that with other people. And at the close of the unit, we said there are these other forms. There's all kinds of digital storytelling, and there's infographics, and there's other ways to communicate nonfiction elements and stories. And while we didn't do formal training in that, you weren't really trained in how to make a movie or specific details. We did look at enough of them that you saw some really core concepts. One of them is that everything is there on purpose. So in an infographic, it's not a mistake that like the font gets a little bigger over here, or that it's laid out on the page in a certain way, or there's a central controlling image. In a movie or a documentary, you might see that hey, there's a close-up of this guy's hands, and there's a reason for that. Like, there's a choice being made there. So what we want to do here is kind of just allow you a chance to play in your own design world and create something. I've got some lists of things that have to be in there, but the how you include, what you include, how you lay it on the page is all part of your sort of creativity and design. And then it'll ultimately be a way to share with other readers in our class and also in the school about your book, and maybe help them find something that they might be really curious about. So I'm sure that yesterday's lesson was a little overwhelming, like a controlling idea, and I don't know what this is, but hopefully you've started to think, okay, like if I had to communicate one core idea, it would be this about this book. Like if somebody's going to get just a single impression about this book, it would be this. And that's going to kind of serve as the base of your image and of your, we won't really call it a poster, but your graphic design. Now today we're going to layer that on, and we're going to kind of visit the same idea that maybe if you've done the zoom in, zoom out journal activity, it's really kind of similar. It's like if you see something and then you pull back and then get really close, you see different things. And all of that is part of the story going on. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you go to a park and there is a big thing about watersheds. There's a big kiosk, and it's got a huge, 6 foot by 8 foot picture setup. Usually there's one core idea there. It'll probably be something about watersheds, for example. And that if you just glance at it right away, that's about watersheds, so that message gets delivered right away. That's kind of our level one. And we want that to be kind of your controlling idea, so that if you look, you can just boom, see and go I get what this is about. This is about recycling. This is about birds of prey. This is about, dunes or something. Then the way these are built, there's kind of 2 steps closer. So you take 2 steps closer, and then you get another layer of information that's usually pretty big still. And it's kind of like the other key pieces. Let's say it has something to do with geology and dune structure. And so it wants to show you that there's a fore-dune, a mid-dune, and a back-dune. I'm probably getting my terms wrong. I forgot. I know fore-dune is one. And it's so right away, oh, this is about dunes. Oh, look, there's different stages of the dunes. We just walk through those. Cool. And some people will move on. Other people are going to take another 2 steps closer to level 3, which is going to get into more fine print detail. We're going to do something similar, so that if someone just glances at your graphic design, they're like, hey, this book is about this. And then 2 steps closer, oh, here's some core ideas. And then 3 steps closer gets into fine print, and kind of not literally fine print, because it can be other things. But by fine print, I mean smaller, more in-depth, you're spending some time here. You're going to end up reading something like a short passage or something. So what does that look like? This is going to be a little awkward, but I drew it on the board, and this is going to be kind of wah, wah. All right, so here we are. Right away here, if this is the book I Will Always Write Back, from this distance you can tell hey, look, there's 2 worlds. And that's kind of your core level 1 idea, that these people come from 2 very different worlds. Then I take some steps closer, and I start to recognize some other things. I'm oh, there's the title, I Will Always Write Back. And the always here in the graphic design has been emphasized to really kind of hammer home this idea of loyalty and devotion. This will never stop. I will always be your friend. We also start to see in the black, you start to see oh, pen pals. I get it. These guys are pen pals between the U.S. and in Africa. And then there's like a little sign or an image there of like a change from a small house to a bigger house. So that must be part of the story. So the blue at this point, the blue was level 1. That's your biggest idea that like the single thing that people need to walk away from. With, I should say. And then level 2 is sort of the black. I see there's some other stuff there, but I can't make it out from this distance. So if I take a few steps closer, now I start to see, oh, there's some other information here. There's like a key idea is that Africa is not primitive, that the U.S. uses too many resources. There seems to be a block quote over here, and then a little quote that actually goes with this house thing that explains a little bit more. Now, this is simplified. Ultimately, we don't want your things to be too cluttered. Yours has to have more elements, but you're starting to see this sort of like 3 stages. Far away is like the big idea. Next step in is other key ideas. And then fine print details are some of the more nuanced and subtle things that you want people to come away with. That's the goal for your project. So as you complete page 3 of the worksheet guide, you're going to spend a lot more time now kind of mapping this out a little, making sure you have all the required elements. There's a checklist, check, 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 check. And then kind of laying it out and figuring out, okay, what's going to go where. You might have to find your long quote. You might have to think about design. You can erase and sketch. This is kind of like we'll call it like a sandbox, right? That's kind of a phrase that gets used for like a play area where you can kind of mess around and try things out. The next stage is to put it together into a final piece. All right, have fun.